Okay. Good morning and welcome this morning to day one of our fall 2019 7-day Power Circle Challenge. I want to thank you for being here with me this morning. To those of you who are here live, thank you, up bright and early. And to those of you who watch this a bit later as a recording, perfect. It all works, and whatever it is that works for you is what we're after. We'll discuss throughout the week why our theme is the starfish effect, but basically it comes from an animation that I think, Kathryn, you shared with me. Okay, maybe we can start there. So
sure.
I'll explain it a little bit, and then you can explain it even better. So that's this great animation of, basically how you can fit together. So how you fit together to basically form this incredible fabric or field of awesomeness or impact. And the stronger that each of us are in our own prongs, so to speak, as a starfish, the stronger and longer and more expansive each of us are, the more incredible we are together as that cohesion occurs. And Kathryn sent me this amazing video clip that demonstrated that, and I can definitely share that as well. Kathryn, anything to add to that?
Yeah, well, what I recall from that was it came out of our webinar in your last Power Circle, where we were talking about strengths and, thinking about I had a Clifton Strengths Finder coach who talked about the strengths being like a 5-pointed star. And the more that we can focus on our strengths and build those out, the points of our star get clearer. And, I remember you kind of riffed off that with this idea of a starfish. And then this video is really basically these starships in a Marvel movie that, come together, and they create this incredible web of strength. It becomes like a shield. But it really articulates this idea that together we are stronger. And when we know our strengths and we focus on our strengths, not only are we stronger as an individual, but collectively we become stronger.
Yeah, what a great visual. I'll definitely share it again. I love that. And I think that's why our work, together is we're always looking to refine and remember and, ourselves individually, but we're also always looking at opportunities and possibilities and mobilization collectively, because it's always that working together of not only strengthening ourselves, but how that actually all fits together. And that's where I think the magic is. So thank you to Kathryn Pollack. I realize now how perfect it was. Kathryn and I finished off our last Power Circle Challenge. And now I understand why she is here this morning, bright and early on a weekend morning, to help me kick off this Power Circle. So Kathryn, I'm hoping that you'll introduce yourself, not necessarily for the women that are live on the call, but especially for the recording. Just wanted you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So my name is Kathryn Pollack, and I'm a wife and a mother of 2 amazing young boys. And I am an assistant deputy minister with the provincial government here in Saskatchewan. And I have had, I would say, not a traditional career path. I started out in the arts as a professional dancer, and moved, had a very satisfying career, moved from that career into oil and gas and mining and utilities, and now work in the public sector. And when I think about, the common thread that's there, and what what am I really about? It is about connection. I'm always searching for connection, and that's where I find, you know, real meaning for myself is in connecting with others and moving the dial on important issues by making those, you know, personal connections with other people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think how I see that fitting into our conversation today. We talked about it briefly a little earlier this week, just about expecting magic, and expecting magic in not only every conversation and interaction and encounter. Like what might that look like if we expected more magic? And how does, you know, articulating possibility, how does actually knowing really clearly what we're looking for and who we're looking for in the world, how does that add to, you know, how does that lead into expecting that magic, so that you're literally kind of attracting or magnetizing what you're ready for next, is typically how I say it. So I'm super grateful to have a conversation with you this morning. And our theme for day one of the PowHERcircle Challenge is exactly that: expecting magic, articulating possibility. Our conversation today is about inviting and accessing possibility by articulating with clarity and specificity what we are ready for next. So I'm going to dive in with my first question, and I'm curious, Kathryn, if you can share with us, as a powerful woman, as a leader, as a visionary, as someone who's always looking to get the most out of life, how do you go about continually finding the clarity you're looking for? And what are some of the tools or processes or routines that you fit into life to help with that?
Sure. So I love this topic, by the way. So I'm thrilled that I'm the one who gets to kick this off this week. And, you know, I think I've been thinking a bit about the talk I gave at your accelerator, the fierce dialogue talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, this begins with fierce dialogue with ourselves, right? You know thyself. Part of dialogue is knowing where the other person is coming from, and we need to know where we're coming from. And so in terms of how do I go about that personally, I mean, I think the first step is making space for that to happen. If we're so caught up in the busyness of life and too busy being busy, you know, it just can never happen. So I think the first step is making space in life for that, you know. And the easiest place to start, I always think, is 15 minutes at the front end of your day and 15 minutes at the back end of your day. And the you know, easiest way to start, I think, the tools are meditation, you know, or mindfulness. I think sometimes meditation sounds a little inaccessible for some people, but there's so many tools out there right now, online, to help you with that. And it doesn't have to be some big scary thing. You know, you don't have to engage in this monk type meditation where we think, we'll never achieve this thing. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to approach meditation, and it's just about, slowing yourself down and getting in touch with yourself. So that's one. Another one I think is journaling. And again, that might sound somewhat simplistic, but it's a way to sort through the noise in our heads and get it out. I went through The Artist's Way when I was an artist, which is a book that walks you through sort of, how to really uncover your creativity. And that process starts with every day. The first thing you do in the morning is you write 3 pages. You just write. And, it's a way of clearing through the muddiness in our minds and getting to some clarity and stopping the filtering that we do all the time. So, meditating, journaling. And I think another one is surrounding ourselves with the people we aspire to be, the people we want to emulate, is so important. I think that's where I'll leave it for now. I don't know if you have any follow-ups in there.
Yeah, I'll just I'll throw a couple things back towards you that I really loved. I love that know thyself. I think the easy thing to do is keep externally focused. Like if we can just keep the TV on and the radio on and the social media on and everything on, then we don't have to, we don't have to make the time to just actually get to know who we are.
Right.
But it's in getting to know thyself that I think deeper levels of satisfaction and fulfillment come out of what we're doing and out of life. Making space, yeah, totally. To kind of kick in on one of the themes that came through this week from the accelerator, I would challenge people to even start with just 10% more. What if you just took even 10 minutes in the morning to start, even 10 minutes in the morning, and then 10 minutes to reflect on the day? And what I love is maybe instead of focusing those 10 minutes on what you need to do in a day, or what you did in a day, could you reflect on how you want to be? And then at the end of the day, could you actually celebrate how you were? We're so focused on, right? Like doing and I think the doing is a natural byproduct with greater ease when we focus on who we're being.
It's so true. I think part of this is being intentional about who you want to become. So you think about your best future self, and what if you just started acting like that right now? You have this vision of yourself in the future. Start acting like that right now. Don't wait,
Yeah, and it's funny, like every time I have to learn a lesson about leadership, I always go back to the physical, because that's actually like what's taught me so much. But I remember saying to many, many clients, stop being the overweight, unhealthy woman who needs to lose weight and start being an athlete. Just wake up and eat like an athlete, move like an athlete. What would that look like and feel like? Just imagine, just have fun with it. Get out of the context of being that woman that needs to lose 50 pounds and be the athlete. Go ahead. We could go on and on for that.
We could. I'm afraid this could go on far too long. But one thing I've been thinking about lately too, related to clarity, and I think it ties in with what you're saying, is that clarity is not a personality trait. It's not a thing that we have. We generate clarity.
I love that.
That's the action part for ourselves, right? So we can't sit around waiting for clarity to show up. We need to generate it. And so I hope that for anyone searching for more clarity, that can just maybe inspire some action, right?
Yeah. Well, and actually in the Facebook group, that's actually the nugget for today. That's what I think we're meant to hear today. How are we cultivating clarity? And so that's a great lead in to our next question, because I think this is a super important part of cultivating clarity. Why do you think speaking your clarity is important? If you do, but why would speaking your clarity be important in terms of cultivating more of it in your life?
Well, this is such a great question. I mean, I think at a kind of basic level, when you articulate something, outside, so not just what's rolling around in your head, but using words to articulate that externally, it forces even greater clarity, right? So just the simple act of, I have to say it, and feeling those words come out of your mouth, I think that it does then force you to dig a little deeper, and continue to get to the edges of that star, or however we're visualizing that clarity. But I ties into the idea, expect magic. I think amazing things happen when we are very intentional about what we want and what we're striving to be and what we're moving towards. And so a big part for me of the speaking is in the magic that shows up after we've spoken that. And I'll go back to a quote that I shared in your accelerator last week, which is, not every conversation will change the trajectory of your world and the world around you, but any conversation holds that possibility. So it's in the speaking, that the speaking of our clarity, our truth, what we're, what our end game is, what our purpose is, that we really start to see magic show up in our lives.
Yeah. No, I 110% agree. I mean, that's one of the most important things to me. I think even having these conversations fit into that for me. Obviously, you know how important I feel speaking is, in terms of magnifying possibility, because we keep it in such a small little box. We have no idea how crazy awesome something could be. We outlined what we might expect, right? We have no idea what actually is possible. But I think for me, speaking about what we're ready for, what we're committed to, what we're up to in the world, it does a couple of things, and especially publicly, which is why a good part of Powerhouse is that media platform. I've seen it over and over again. And when women speak or write, like communicate publicly about something, their own level of conviction and commitment to that, like, really solidifies. A public declaration of what you're committed to just takes it that whole next level, in terms of leadership, and it helps you to feel braver. It helps you to, like, you've got to bring it, like, up your game. What about around, like, I guess my question is, in terms of speaking, what are your thoughts around, like, the concise and the specificity part of it in terms of this conversation about articulating possibility?
Well, I think what ties into the concise and specific is courage. It takes a lot of courage, especially if we allow ourselves to think the way you're talking about thinking about these, huge possibilities out there. It takes a lot of courage to speak that out loud. But I do think, courage, there's a correlation between courage and self-esteem or positive mindset. And clarity on who you are is associated with overall self-esteem. So how positive you feel about yourself is tied to how well you know yourself. And I think that's part of why self-awareness is such an important part of sort of initial success. If we're thinking about that trajectory of, the big leap, if you will. And so I think that the courage to speak that is certainly tied into that positive self-esteem and positive outlook for ourselves as individuals and for ourselves on our life.
Yeah, you know, that was another huge nugget this morning. Like that's a Kathryn nugget. The how positive you feel about yourself is directly related to how well you know yourself. That's awesome. Yeah, that's actually very powerful. Thank you. I'm going to, our final question for this morning. We're talking, about this concept, sept, and this leadership insight. So I'd like to break it right back down to, what if all of this sounds great, but it's, in some ways it still sounds a bit unsurmountable. And I guess what I want to go back to is where do we even start? Like, if this is an intention of ours, but the integration of it still feels overwhelming, what would you say is a good first step if we in the past have really struggled with finding or speaking a deeper, more fulfilling level of clarity?
So I've got a couple of thoughts, and I'll try and be concise
Yeah.
so that I don't drag this on too long. But it's two kind of different approaches that I think, one could work better for others than the other, just based on where we're at. And so the first one is sort of a bit of a 3-step idea, where I think the first step is describing how you've perceived yourself over the past several months in certain situations. So doing some reflection on, when I've been in the workplace or with my family, or, on the board I serve, or in a volunteer capacity, thinking about how we have conducted ourselves and interacted with others over the past several months in all these settings. And then ask, how do I see myself being in the future? Right? How would my future self look and feel and behave differently in those situations? And then the last part of this one is to think about 3 aspirational words. This comes from the work of Brendon Burchard. Think of 3 aspirational words that you would like to have used to describe you. So these are big things. And then set an alarm in your phone with those 3 words that goes off like 3 times a day or something, so that you just pause and you go, you see the alarm and you see those 3 words and you think, did I act in those ways today? Am I acting in that way right now? So it's just a visual reminder about the who am I and who do I aspire to be. So that is one approach that I think is pretty tactical, that you could implement right away. The other one is more of it's maybe a little bit less explicit for people to see, but it's a 4-question thing for ourselves, that I think these 4 questions, depending where you're at in your life, these can be asked at a micro level or at a macro level, the big picture, or it can be super specific, like in this moment. So it's the who am I is the first question. And so as I'm saying these, I would just encourage people to think, how would I look at that in an exact moment in time? Or how would I look at that if I'm thinking of me as a human walking on this earth through my life? So who am I? Where am I? Why am I where I am? And what am I going to do about that? So for me right now, if I'm thinking in the moment, who am I? I'm Kathryn Pollack. Where am I? I'm on a webinar with Charlene. Why am I here? I'm here to share my thoughts and insights and have an interaction with Charlene, what am I going to do about that? I'm going to be present. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to share as much as I can, and, you know, hope to inspire others to maybe think about things a little differently. Mm-hmm. Of course, I could answer those questions on a, you know, larger scale, which I probably wouldn't want to share on a webinar right now. But, you know, so I think like those are a couple of things that people could use, hopefully, to just start to gain some clarity.
Great. And I'll definitely pop those into our Facebook group, because I think those are also great journaling questions, great prompts, writing prompts. And I think that's a great place to start. So just to reflect back on some of your baby steps, you're saying start with some reflection, then think about how your future self, how you would want your future self to act differently. And then also choosing 3 words that describe what you would like people to say about you, the reputation that you want to be known for, and actually setting a timer until those become so ingrained in you, which I love the tactileness of that. Like we set timers to remind ourselves to drink water or to do other things that help us physically. So, you know, why aren't we using those same tools, those same ideas, and pulling them through into stronger and higher levels of leadership? So I love that. Awesome. Cool. Any final thoughts, Kathryn? We've got a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to be popping into our Facebook group to give some homework and just go over our power tool today.
Well, I think my final thought, it comes again from the work of Brendon Burchard. He's got a book, it's called High Performance Habits. And, you know, a lot of research in it about, you know, basically what high performers do on a consistent basis. And I think the piece I want to share from his book is that high performers consistently think about who they are and how to become that. So high performers are constantly searching for clarity, but they could also describe with great clarity how they wanted to feel in these future endeavors. So I think such a big part of it, when we get tripped up in the clarity piece, we start to think that it has to be the exact title or the job or the, you know.
Yeah.
But I think the clarity is on the experience we want to have. How do we want to feel? And if it gets so much easier when we focus on that. And that's when the magic really starts to happen, I think.
Yeah. And in my closing thoughts would be this. We talk a lot in the leader path about that phase of letting go, and that it's when you're letting go that you're actually, when you release everything that's heavy, that's then that you actually have liftoff. And one of the pieces of letting go is letting go of the how. Get really clear on the who and the experience that you want in the next phase or leg of your life, and then let go of the how, because it's probably crazier and bigger and bolder and more awesome than you're even imagining. So why would you hang on to the how? So
oh, Charlene, you're so awesome. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Thank you so much for being here this morning and helping us kick off day 1 of the PowHERcircle Challenge. Thank you for those of you who are alive, and hope you have a really great day today. Please be sure to do the work that's involved with your journal. And I'm just, like I said, I'll just pop into the Facebook group to give some action items. So thank you for the conversation very much. Thanks, Kathryn.
Thanks, Charlene. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.